Chapter 50. Chapter 50 is speaking of a new kind of love. We've had some kind of engagement with this idea before, that the Alter Rebbe will give us new insight. For the most part, the type of love that we've been speaking about is an expression of the right side, of chesed, of kindness, loving kindness. It is the level of what we call a Kohen. A Kohen is a priest. A Kohen is called Isha Chesed, a person of kindness. And that's why they have the special duty to bless the Jewish people, because of the kindness that they have. And that kindness, or that love that motivates the kindness, is called Kesef HaKedoshim. Kesef means money, but it also means longing. People long for money. But it's actually, Kesef is silver. Silver money. But it comes from the word soif, to long. To long for the holiness. As in the words, you sorely longed for your father's home. That is an outgrowth of the right side, which is chachma, wisdom, intuitive, intelligence, as opposed to cognitive, very rational form, or whatever, rational. That is chesed, kindness, which is so that's the holiness of this love, the longing for this holiness, the yearning for it, right, comes from the concept of chachma. That's the root source of it, which is longing to be connected, to be joined to God, because love is an enjoyment, a bond of something that is inherent, natural, and therefore metaphorically like water. And that's the idea of an up-down model, from above coming down below, like water on top of the mountain. It's the same water at the bottom of the mountain, right? In other words, the love begins very on top, right, and flows down to the bottom. And this is longing to connect to the source. To the source. Meaning our source is our Father in heaven. Or, I don't know, heaven's not the right word. I shouldn't say that. That comes from a non-Jewish place. Right? However, there's another kind of love that excels this kind of love that we just spoke about, just as gold is superior to silver. Now, gold is superior to silver not only because of its actual value, but because of the glitter. It glitters. This kind of love is not up-down, meaning inherent, and therefore is a part of me that I besides Martha, is anybody having a difficulty in the feed? Okay, hopefully the feed is good for everybody. So This love that we're talking about is from down up. Comes from the left side. It's a rapturous love. It's fire. Just like fire goes from down up, right? It rises upwards. So it's the glowing coals of fire. It's a yearning for your source that's way beyond you. So it's not a natural love like water, the flowing waters. This is something that comes from Gvura. That is an extension of Bina. That's the left side. Bina is understanding. Gvura is strength. How does this love come about? It comes about because you meditate and think about the greatness of how God, before him, everything is absolute nothingness. So, in other words, you could think about God, how he fills the world. So that gives you a desire to connect within the world to God, because he's the true reality of the world. So when you see food, you could see the externality of the food, that it is just enticing you, or understand that it is God that animates this food, is the true reality of that food. And therefore what you want is really the spark of God that's there, and you want to connect to God through the food. So, in other words, there's a reality to something. In this instance, I'm giving the metaphor of food, or the example of food, right? And you want to connect to God through food rather than just to connect to, your taste palette, right? That's the first kind. Here, the meditation is not about how God fills the world, and not even how God is transcendent of the world. How there's no other, but that there is no other reality than God. That there is nothing, but absolute nothingness except him. What does that cause the individual? That you want to kind of leave the world in a sense. It causes the soul a rapturous, fiery love. That's from down up, right? Fiery coal of mighty flame that surges upward. Like when you look at the wick, that the fire is being held by the wick. You can see that the fire is surging, trying to sort of jump off the wick almost. If you look closely, it's like as if it just wants to separate from the wick. The wick is holding it down. It wants to part from the wick, the fire. That's a metaphor, of course. The same thing as the soul. It looks to tear away itself from the body. Why? Because this is the element of divine fire that is in the divine soul. So unlike other forms of love that we explained, that are the right side, that are analogous to water, right? Water quenches the thirst. Here you've got a thirst, right? You have a thirst that it can't be quenched. It's a fire. So the right side love is that a realization that the food you're eating, kosher food for a Jew, of course, is an expression of godliness, and you can have a relationship with God through it. So that quenches your thirst. So you can have a relationship here, because there's something natural here, inherent, that you can have in a relationship. That's the right side. So you're in to have that relationship. But here on the left side that we're talking about, that is analogous to gold versus the silver, it's fire. Fire creates a thirst. And there's nothing to quench it. There's just the fire of the soul, the divine soul, that it just wants to part and be absorbed in its source. It creates, it can create at least, or it does create, a love sickness, as where that the soul is sick with love for God. Why? Again, because it's unable to quench its thirst. It's not able to have the connection, as again on the right side, when you understand that what food really is, right? Like a mother, when she gives food to her children, she's not giving food, she's giving love. It's embodied in food. When you recognize that, you really appreciate your mother or your wife who gives you food, right? Like my mother, my wife. You appreciate that this is an embodiment of her love. So you have a way now to express that love by saying thank you, by appreciation, by making a blessing to Hashem, right? There's a way to connect. That's the right side, because there's something, there's a natural connection there, which I'll speak more about another time. But here, on the left side, that is a down-up rather than an up-down movement, is meditating upon, again, how God is the only existence. Not how God is within the world, but there is a world. There's just but God. So that creates the soul's desire to kind of leave its the body, to separate from the body, and a love sickness for God. This level, and a very lofty level, of course, we're talking about over here, is the higher Gvura and the higher Bina that derives the source of the Levites in this world. What was the service of the Levites? Different than the Kohen. The Kohen was about bringing God down to the world, up, down. The blessings from above that they would bring down here, because they're an embodiment of the loving kindness. The Kohen, that's the Kohen. The Levite, what was their service in the Holy Temple? Was voice, melody, thanksgiving with song, music, harmony, a tune. Music can be varied moods. Some can be very serious, which is coming from Gvura. Others are happy that come from Chesed. Right? But music is about longing for something way above and beyond. The melody that is stemming from Gvura, very soulful. People know Chabad melodies. We have the right side ones that are, kind of more upbeat. And then you have the left side that are more, that the soul is just trying to almost like music. It's called Ratzui, an advance. The soul's advancing out of itself. And then in the music, you also have the retreat, to return. Ratzui v'shoiv. There's the running of the soul trying to leave, like the flame on the candle is trying to separate. And then you have the way it returns, comes back, and is held. This is the nature of this intense love, like the flame of, right? And the Alter Rebbe says it's impossible to really explain this clearly in writing. Yeah. And this kind of love, after prefacing a meditation that comes from where a person is utterly removed from any negativity, from any evil. In other words, you can't have this kind of love without first removing yourself from negativity, from evil. You won't be able to experience that. Whew. It's heavy. In the middle of a thought still, that we will come and have a complete understanding in tomorrow's class. In the meantime, there are times that we feel, I would suggest it's probably very seldom, if ever, because you need to be removed from any negativity. But in a moment that we feel just like so connected that the soul is just wants to depart. It doesn't want to stay here. Now, I'm very cautious in saying that because unfortunately, there's this suicide. And this is not suicide. Because there's the retreat coming back, which we'll discuss more tomorrow, that concept. But suicide is the idea that you just want to depart and leave, but it's coming from an evil place. You're not feeling that you're worthy, that you have a purpose. Whether I'm here or not here, it doesn't make a difference. I might as well not be here because it's too painful. That's what it means. This is obviously not that at all. This is a sense that there is no other reality. Everything's absolutely nothing but God. And therefore leads you to absolute wanting of nothingness. Not wanting nothingness, but wanting the nothingness. And therefore that's the idea of the soul's ready to, as the flame is ready to depart from the wick. The soul is ready to depart from the body. Yeah. Very lofty. Okay, let's take some questions here. Let's get maybe some discussion. Nadav and Avihu are examples of Ratzi V'Shoev, and was their death a divine kiss, and this was and it was with Moshe and Aaron. Thank you, John. Yes. So the prime example of this is Nadav and Avihu, the two sons of Aaron, the high priest, that they came into the Holy of Holies, and their soul expired. So why did their soul expire? They died there because they had such a rapturous love, such a yearning to connect, that the soul left the body. So that is an example. That's an idea here of what this means. Yeah. Thank you, John. Very true. Nasido, what happens when the soul desires to leave the body by force, that a troubled person ends up, well, okay, that's what we spoke about, which is totally against God's command. And so, yeah, okay, Nasido, so we brought up about suicide. Of course, it is the most self-centered thing a person can do, is take their life. They do it because of the pain that they're experiencing, not because of any other reason. They recognize how God creates them for a purpose and that they are needed. Then, you wouldn't give up your life. Lori, is that why one of the rabbis who entered Pardes died? Yeah, actually no. 4 entered into Pardes. Thank you, Lori. 4 entered into the orchard of very deep Torah teachings, the Talmud tells us. One of them was Rabbi Akiva, and 3 others. One died, one went crazy, one went off. And Rabbi Akiva says, Nichtas b'shalom yatz b'shalom, he entered in peace and he left in peace. So we're going to have that part tomorrow, what that means. Okay. So we'll have that idea. Yep. Very good, Laurie. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments? Any other thoughts? Last night we had our TRC gathering. Some wonderful sharing. It's not too late to join because it's an ongoing conversation. Onward conversation. A reminder that we have Rambam right after this. So do join us. Today we're starting the first chapter of Maimonides' teachings. So you like getting on the ground floor. Today is a great time. 770, 6085 is where you can catch that on Zoom. Or you can go to Facebook, Chabad ZK. All right, I don't see any other questions. Oh, Michael.
Shalom, Rabbi Fine. I have a question. It's with we learned this love, on the other hand, has totally different quality. That is glowing coals of fire. And when I look in the commentary, there's written the Rebbe comments that this appears to contradict the statement of the Alter Rebbe, where he said, a love of God burning in his heart like a flame. His soul will pine with desire, rising to attain to the level of Abba Hava Rabba, abundant love. And this higher level of love stems from the element of water. Here, however, the Alter Rebbe says that the superior form of love is that which burns in one's heart like a flame, his soul pinging with desire. And then he says that there are 2 different kinds of coins. Can you elaborate on this?
I think we did. The glitter, the shine of gold is like the flame. The idea of the flame.
And the difference is that the glitter is like our devotion.
And what?
And where comes the difference from the 2 different silver? Yeah. Is it the desire that makes it superior?
No, the fire of it can't be quenched. That's the idea. As opposed to silver is a longing that can be quenched. It's a thirst that like water quenches. Okay.
Okay, I get it. Yes, I get it. One can be like when you're thirsty, you drink, and then you are not thirsty, but the other this will stay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So yeah, water quenches the thirst. So you have a desire, you have a longing, right? It can be quenched. The fire wants to the fire wants to depart from the wick, right? It wants to separate. Why? Because the awareness that you have of your connection to God, both are there's a connection to God. One is that, and I gave the example of, if you have food and therefore there's a longing to connect to God. Why do we have a desire for food? It's because we have really a longing to connect to God. And food is a vehicle for connection to God. So we mistaken it for, just a pleasure, just seeking pleasure, right? That's the mistake we make. Really what it is the longing of the soul that it wants to connect to God through the food. By making a blessing, having an awareness that God is the true vitality of the food, and that gives me vitality. It's the vitality of Him that's giving me through the food, right? So there's a way to quench your longing to connect to God. That's the right side. Here we're talking on the left side. That which is glitters in a way that is like a fire that is just like, you see a fire, you sometimes like, it's like very awesome, right? God forbid, very destructive. But, and that's the idea of the fire, right? That creates also a desire, but here it's a desire to just separate from the wick, to separate from your body, to just be bound up, not with God the way He is in the world, but to the reality of God the way He is. There is no world. There's only Him. Well, if there's only Him, then there's no desire to be me, right? On that level, so to speak.
This was the soul from the beginning. Once the divine soul, divine soul wants to go back to Hashem and to leave the body and to leave that is own soul, and that is goes to we lose our independence when our soul goes
right.
back.
Okay, so that's why we're in the mid. That's Rotzi V'Shoiv. That's the desire, the advance, and then there is the retreat, which we'll speak more about tomorrow. Bella. So what? The left side overtakes a person when they pass away. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? It overtakes a person when they pass away. What do you mean by that, Bella? Please elaborate, because I don't understand. By the way, with this we can understand the importance of a niggin, Hasidic melody. Davida, do all souls have the same flame? Do the wicked have the same type of flame as a Beinoni in training? Yeah, they all have it. The question is how accessible it is. The more tainted our soul is, the more hidden is that part of the soul, right? So yeah, it's there for sure. It's just not accessible to most. Denise, so what I'm getting on this is the soul desires to leave the body and unite with our Creator as we experience the One. And the Kohen brings down more light than the soul remains. Yeah, so the Kohen brings down light. Godliness downwards, like water coming down, right? Water seeks the lowest point, right? To bring it down. Kohen brings down the blessing. The Levi is the melody The melody has, there's movements in a melody that are advanced, that bring you to a rapturous love, that you seek departure. Then there's another part of the melody that will be shoiv, that will bring the return. Thank you, Denise. Very good. All right, folks. Rambam is coming. Yes, so Lori, music is powerful. So when I desire sadder type of music, is my soul yearning to return? Remember that this level we're talking about over here is when, we're kind of clean. On the, our soul is not tainted. So, yeah, so there's truth sometimes for that, because it could be from a bad place when we want that sadder music. Not necessarily from the best place. It ultimately, it may be our conscious awareness. I might not be in a good place, but the soul wants it to, as a rapturous love and yearning for beyond. Yep. Vicky has a question. Did I deal with it already? Was it 2 question marks? Excuse me a moment. Hello? Yes. Sure. Okay. All right, folks. So, I don't see. Okay. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zich in Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Don't forget, 770-770-6085. By the way, 770 is Chabad World Headquarters. 6085 is my home address. All right, that's on Zoom. If you want Facebook, it's Chabad ZK, and we're going to be there in a few moments. Have a wonderful day. Thank you all for joining.